in front of the South Station. And we had three objectives. We wanted to first clear that area of individuals who were unlawfully occupying that section of the public roadway. Second, we wanted to ensure that we did so in a way that did not result in injuries to either protesters, demonstrators, or police officers. And third, we wanted to provide a safe and lawful space for those who wish to express their First Amendment rights to do so. And we accomplished all three of those goals tonight. This was a very tense situation, highly emotional, and I want to first commend those who voluntarily and lawfully complied with the lawful commands and direction of the police officers tonight. The overwhelming majority of those who were in the encampment and the subsequent demonstrations that we saw down there were lawful and they were peaceful. And I also want to commend my police officers for the restraint that they used, the professionalism, the discretion during this very highly emotional event. But we did have arrests, and we had 8 arrests. We had 4 individuals who were arrested for disorderly conduct, 1 who was arrested for disorderly conduct and obstruction, another arrested for disorderly conduct, obstruction, and unlawful assembly, another who had 2 charges, 1 for disorderly conduct and obstruction, and for tonight's incident, and another charge for riot second and obstruction for his role in the incident that we had last Wednesday at the South Station. And another person who was arrested for his role in the incident at the South Station. He was arrested for riot second, obstruction, and unlawful assembly. You know, decisions like these aren't made lightly. You know, we're taking a lot of things into consideration. And I think it's important for the community to know that, you know, this department, from the very outset, used the utmost levels of restraint and de-escalation. Because let's remember, when this occupation occurred this past Saturday, it was a few days after a highly emotional event involving police officers and demonstrators at the South Station, and it immediately preceded the Chauvin verdict. It was an incredibly tense time, an incredibly emotional time for this city. And when this encampment began, we decided to de-escalate that entire situation by not intervening with this unlawful encampment. And even during the process of removing those individuals from that area in front of Arch Street, we still used the utmost discretion and de-escalation. Those who complied with the lawful orders of officers to leave the area had no confrontation with the officers. And the officers de-escalated once those individuals were removed from the scene. And so this was an incredible display of de-escalation by our officers. I commend them to the highest degree, and also to those in our community who were peaceful with this. And so my message to the community with this is that, you know, there will be those who will applaud this decision. There will be those who will sharply and passionately condemn it. But decisions that deal with public safety, especially when you have individuals who unlawfully occupy a public space, especially a public space that has implications for public safety for a community, decisions have to be made. And sometimes those decisions have very short windows. And we had a window of opportunity tonight to address this issue, do it in a peaceful way, and allow those individuals to have a safe and lawful place to demonstrate. One thing that this was not tonight, this was not an assault on First Amendment rights. In fact, what we did was carve out a place and allow a place for those who want to lawfully and peacefully exercise their rights to do so. And we did that. But the situation was escalating. You know, we were seeing burn barrels and propane tanks, attempts to acquire generators for tents. The human waste and other things that were public safety and public order issues were starting to escalate. And we had an opportunity to do this and do this safely and peacefully. Individuals have a right to peacefully protest, and we get that. We support it. And we supported those dozen or so individuals for 6 days and did not intervene for almost a week while those individuals unlawfully occupied that space. But we also have an obligation to the other 98,000 people in this community, and especially those people who are directly impacted by what happened in that neighborhood down there. And I've received several complaints from individuals regarding the inefficient delivery of police services and fire services as a result of this. The other public order type issues that they had complaints about. And those things also have to be considered. And so overall, it's peaceful in the area. The operation itself was carried out in a peaceful and safe way, and now those individuals down there have an opportunity to express their First Amendment rights in a safe and lawful place. Take any questions that you have.
Chief, aside from the people that you were looking for in regards to the investigation last week, do you feel there was a way to get them to disperse without any arrests, or were they just completely non-compliant and not moving?
We gave several commands and several directions before we had any interaction with those individuals down there. At least 3 warnings to those who were there that the assembly was unlawful and that they were given lawful directions to leave the area. And so the overwhelming majority of the people there complied with those directives. And we had the number of people who I just talked about who were arrested who didn't. And they only represent a very small portion of the individuals who were there.
Chief, did you give the protesters any indication that you were going to do a sweep of that area? You wanted them to disperse ahead of the 15-minute warning that they're saying that they were given that day, because they said they had a lot of belongings and other things, and it wasn't enough time for some of them.
Yes, we gave warning. We gave advance warning that the assembly was unlawful, and we gave them an opportunity to gather their belongings and leave the area. And for those of you who were there, immediately after being given those warnings, several members of the group began to take trash containers, large trash containers from a business that was nearby. Began to build a fire as a means of distracting the officers, and otherwise they've made it very clear that there would be no compliance, especially from that end. And in fact, not only would there be non-compliance, but there would be aggression from many of those people there. And so once we experienced that, then our timeline moved up a little bit, but we still gave those who wanted the opportunity to leave that area, we gave that opportunity to them.
So when you say advance warning, was it a day ahead? Was it 2 hours ahead?
No, the warning we gave them was, it was a 15-minute warning to leave, and notice that if there was non-compliance, that those who were there are breaking the law. And I think it's important, especially with this question, for people to understand the overwhelming majority of those down there complied with that directive. We had the 8 people that were arrested, but there were many more who were there.
How many would you say complied versus the ones that were arrested?
Well, when we were there, I don't know the exact number of people who were there, but I would say at the time when we started the operation, it was at least 3 dozen, probably more at that time, and we had 8 arrests. So the overwhelming majority heard the warnings, they understood what the warnings meant, and they had no intentions of being non-compliant or violating the law, and they gathered their belongings and they left.
And the reason why I'm asking is because there was quite a bit tense, and I think belongings from the last time I was there following the Derek Chauvin trial. Do you think that was enough time for them to take away that much stuff, being that they were there for almost 6 days?
Unsure, because I'm not quite clear on how much property was there. But with operations like this, it's important, again, that we give notice of our intentions. But it's also, as we saw, too much advance notice with situations like this can lead to exactly what we saw. We gave 15 minutes advance warning, and we were met with hostility and aggression from those who were there. Actions that escalated this incident to a point where, it very easily could have resulted in injuries to demonstrators or to officers. And so we take that into consideration with illegal encampments like this in order to peacefully come to a resolution.
And Chief, there was, I guess, some concern because some people had personal items, and I heard from one protester where she was saying that they can come back at another time. Are some of the other people out there going to be able to retrieve some of their items?
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever items were confiscated, then we'll make some arrangements to have those turned over to the owners.
Chief, what kind of position does this put you in for the last week, where almost in either decision you make, you could upset some people? If you move them, now that some of them down there feel that you were insensitive and you moved them, but if you didn't, then people are being allowed to occupy a street in front of a police station. What kind of position does that put you in?
Well, it puts me in an almost impossible position, because this was an extremely polarizing issue, much like a lot of the issues that we see nationwide that are polarizing. And there are some who felt that at the very outset that we should intervene and move these people out and never let them establish an encampment in the first place. And I was sharply and passionately criticized by those for the decision I made to not immediately do that. And then you have those who felt that this should have just gone on indefinitely until they decided to leave. With no intervention by the police, some negotiations, but whenever they decided to go, then they go. And I'm passionately and criticized by those who believe that. And so, it is an extremely polarizing issue, and so I understand that whatever decision I made in this was going to antagonize and maybe even anger some people, but I think it's important for people to understand with the decision-making process with this was that this was not meant to violate any rights. It wasn't meant to antagonize. It wasn't meant to have an emotional response to what was going on. This was a very thoughtful, methodical approach to analyzing what was happening and assessing what was happening out there. And for me, my goal at the very outset was to do what we could to avoid civil unrest in the city. And so that's why I made the decision early on to not intervene, even though many people felt that should have happened. But I also, as this thing started to unfold, also started to get more information that by prolonging this and missing this window of opportunity, it would make things even more dangerous for not just the community, but even those who were involved in this encampment. Because things were starting to escalate in terms of what we were seeing in there. It was being made very obvious that there were no intentions to leave anytime soon. We never, when the decision was made to allow this unlawful encampment, there was never anything conveyed that we would accept or condone this indefinitely. This is something that was impacting the entire neighborhood down there. And so it was important as this started to unfold that we made some adjustments. The window of opportunity came pretty quickly, and fortunately for this community, it was done in a way that was safe. peaceful and allow for individuals a space where they can exercise their First Amendment rights in a peaceful and lawful place.
One of the things that they were asking was to have sit-down with you and the mayor. Are you willing to have that meeting with them? If so, when? Who would you reach out to?
Absolutely. I'm willing to meet with anybody in the community that's, has an interest in making things better in this community. During my time here, I've had over 1,000 appearances, public appearances with members of the community. I'm accessible. I do those things, and we don't know when. I think it's important in situations like this where it's highly tense, highly emotional, that the timing is right so that we have constructive dialogue in situations like that. But I'm perfectly willing to do so, yes.
Specifically with the protesters that were out there, that were encamped out there asking for the meeting, specifically them.
Sure.
And Chief, with now it's been two incidents where the police and the public tension rose a bit at the South Station. Police reform talks and what's going on around the country. What can you do to really lower the temperature of what's going on?
Well, I think we did, because the temperature was sky high Saturday. When this happened, it was such a tense time. And, a decision was made to not stoke the flames. A decision was made to de-escalate. And what this community has told us with the police reform is that they want this police department to exercise de-escalation techniques and de-escalation strategies. And this was a textbook example of that. We had an extremely tense moment when this happened. A decision to intervene at that moment may have resulted in individuals, both officers and members of the community, getting hurt and really causing some serious issues in our community. And we de-escalated, and we let the temperature come down. And when the opportunity was right and the window of opportunity was there, then we took some action to make that area of our city even safer and allow individuals a safe space and a lawful space to exercise their First Amendment rights. And so, so overall, things like this are never clean. There's no easy way to address a situation where you have individuals who have occupied a public street in a neighborhood that desperately needs emergency police and fire services, desperately needs access to their police department, and you have individuals who are passionate in staying and unlawfully occupying a space. It's a very difficult situation to deal with and a very difficult situation to resolve. But I think overall, we have a peaceful resolution now. No one was hurt. The roadway is clear. It's cleaned. And we have a plan now going forward to open up that artery and to also allow for that South Station now to become open to members of the public, so that they can have access to police services. It's unfair to people who live in that neighborhood to not have access to their police department. And so we've now made some movement towards that. And again, we've given these individuals an opportunity to safely and peacefully exercise their First Amendment rights.
One last question. I think I came in on the end of it, but did you say you had a plan for a space for the protesters, or are you're just saying that you've now made it safe and clear for people to access that police station? So
all along, our plan was to remove those individuals from unlawfully occupying that space along Arch Street in front of the police department. And in doing so, we understood that those individuals needed a safe and a lawful space in order to exercise their First Amendment rights. We support it. I've said it many times. I support their rights to demonstrate and express their rights. And so when clearing them from that area, we created a space just off the roadway for those individuals to safely and peacefully demonstrate. And that's what they're doing tonight. That's why I'm so encouraged as we move forward, because there was no violence. You know, the individuals who are there now, they are peacefully exercising their First Amendment rights. We have a plan going forward to allow them to continue to do so without any intervention from the police. You know, we have no desire whatsoever to intervene with individuals who are peacefully and lawfully exercising their First Amendment rights. And now they have a space. They wanted a space in front of the police department. Well, we did that, and we created that. And so that's where they are right now. And so with that respect, I think that it worked. I think there's much work to be done as we move forward. This is still a very emotional, a very tense time. This is still a extremely polarizing issue. Again, where there are going to be some who are going to applaud this decision and others who are going to condemn it. And I think it's important for this community, for those who are on opposite ends of this spectrum, for us to have some constructive dialogue about this. You know, this is the time to talk about why we feel the way we feel about this particular issue. It's a great time to do so. I think that tensions have come down. I think the temperature has come down. And now as we move forward, I think this is a great opportunity for this community.
Just on the record, one thing I forgot, you did make some arrests, and you said some of those arrests were people that you were seeking since Wednesday?
Yes.
How many of those people and who were they?
2.
Can
Yes.
you give us their names?
And I don't have their names. I just have the arrest charges.
So 2 people from
2 people
last week.
from Wednesday.
And how many were arrested today?
They were
just from this incident.
Oh, just from this one?
Today.
And there were 5. There were 6 incidents that were associated solely with today's incident, and 2 that were associated with the incident on Wednesday, the 14th.
And are they still in police? I'm assuming the 2 are still in police custody. Are the rest released, or are they all been released?
From what I understand, at least 1 has been released. I'm not sure about the other one.
Has any of the families been notified? There were a couple of family members out there that said they didn't know where their children were that were arrested. Has any of the family members of the people arrested been notified? Typically,
in situations like this, when we arrest adults, we give the adult arrestees the opportunity to call whomever they want. And so the notification wouldn't come from us, but their loved ones who were arrested would have an opportunity to contact them.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You were fine. You were creeping out, but I understood.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't even get on the tripod this time. I was on my couch.